What is good, everyone? This is your host, Deanna Kemp with Label Free Podcast. Live your best life. You must live label free. I'm super excited. I have a very, very cool, dynamic guest joining us today. He's joining us all the way from Paris, France. So it's a little bit later in the day there for him. He has done so many incredible things. An author. He's considered called the Sensorial Guy. Please welcome David Brower. David, thank you for joining us today. I did not highlight a lot of stuff because I want you to introduce yourself and tell the audience a little bit about your background.
Well, first of all, thank you for having me here, Deanna, on the podcast. It's really great.
Yay.
Gosh, a little bit about myself. I'll just be brief. I'm getting old.
Not at all. Not at all. We're only getting better, right?
Yeah, lots of experiences. So I'm an American in Paris, and I have been for now 30 years. I grew up in the Los Angeles area. And at some point when I was doing political science studies at UCLA and took the LSAT and failed horribly, I was getting the message that I wasn't heading down the right path and I needed to kind of escape and try and find myself, try and do something. And so I got on a plane with a one-way ticket and came to Paris, France, and thought I was going to maybe stay for a year and a half. And here I am 30 years later. So we spent a lot of time in the entertainment business, about 20 years, working for the likes of Disney and IMAX, at international roles in film distribution and marketing, these types of things. And loved that period in my life up until about, maybe 8-9 years ago when I actually jumped and decided I was going to try and do something a little bit more personal, a little bit more meaningful for myself, and to let outside to me that hadn't, I guess, really seen the light that I wanted them to see, and to be able to kind of focus a little bit more on those attributes of myself and get some kind of a sense of purpose and self-actualization along the way there. So yeah, I started looking into the entrepreneurship, speaking, coaching world, and I've done several things in that domain, and even started my own live event, which is called Sensorial Experience Day, which is actually bringing people together around performing arts and culinary experiences. It's a very presence-inducing connection with self and other, abundance experience. A lot about consciousness and jubilance and joy. It's very, very pleasurable kind of thing. And in the meantime, I wrote a book a couple of years ago called Dance, not a couple of years ago, what am I saying? At the beginning of this year. Actually, I wrote it the first time a little bit before. Beautiful illustrations called Dance and Love Caterpillars. I wrote it because a couple of years ago, I lost my beloved wife of 27 years. And this was part of my healing, was to actually write this story and release it, and to share with the world, that whatever happens in our life, and lots of serendipitous things happen, good, bad, and ugly.
Yeah.
The question is, are we going to be resilient and rise up and face that and work through that and come back to trust and love life again and be re-engaged and, continue on with life, because that's what we're really here for. So yeah, today I do lots of coaching around pleasure. I just started a Facebook live series that has conversations around pleasure also, larger than just sort of pleasure for pleasure's sake. It's more pleasure with purpose, pleasure with performance, pleasure in the different aspects of our life, with a sensorial, spiritual take, and pragmatic kind of take. So yeah, briefly, or maybe that wasn't too brief.
No, I mean, but so I have a lot of questions off of all of that. But so for me, all of many people that I've talked to, what you do is very different than anyone that I've talked to. Your focus on like the senses and that pleasure, just experiencing that pleasure and abundance.
Mm-hmm.
I've talked to many coaches, many coaches. I've probably done about 200 interviews in the last couple of years. And extremely, a lot more in the last, 8 months. So, I've been really full force talking to a lot of people, which I'm blessed. So many people want to talk to me. I'm like, yeah. But out of all the people I've talked to, you offer something completely different. Your focus is very different. And so can you talk about like what brought you to being more about the senses and pleasure and abundance, like why you wanted to focus more on those attributes than other forms of coaching, I guess?
Well, I guess I like pleasure.
Who doesn't? I know I
Um,
do.
but, or I should say, and I want my pleasure to be purposeful. I want my pleasure to be performant for my life. And so, sort of the magic triumvirate is, how do I live a pleasurable life in the first instance that is purposeful? And this leads to performance in my life. And so, I've just sought that out for a lot of my life, to do the work that I want to do. And when it's no longer that, to move on, and to do everything I can to make sure that the different aspects of my life are healthy,
Sure.
that my well-being is really there. And I mean that from a financial sense, from a relational sense, definitely from a health and mental health sense, and make sure that the different aspects of my life work.
Right.
It doesn't make sense, again, to just kind of like excessive pleasure or overly hedonic or something that is not very useful. Doesn't really interest me. This said, there's a big range there between what that means, and it's so very personal, right?
Yeah.
If you ask somebody, what is a pleasurable life to you? And I think that in some ways, we've tried to make life too black and white. And I'm trying to bust the box there and say, well, no, it's more like a rainbow. Like there's
Right.
an on and off switch
Sure.
to life, but I want a variator, right? Like with a light, I want to be able to say, no, I want this strong, I want this. I want to change the hue and the color and so how can I live a life that gives me that choice,
Right.
that opportunity? And, certainly when I came to France here, food was a big part of introducing me to the pleasures of the palate and the pleasures, Epicurean arts and culinary arts. And I started cooking a lot also, and
Making me hungry.
realized how amazing cooking is.
Yeah.
It's an artistic, creative moment of self-expression, of customization, of creating beauty in a manual way through your senses.
Yeah.
I mean, probably cooking and sex are probably the two main areas where we use really all of our senses. I mean, if you really lean into all of them, you really can get pleasure there. So I don't know, I guess I've been someone who's always wanted to kind of lead with pleasure and not say like, let's work until retirement and then pleasure. Like, no, life is now.
Right.
And, I'm not going to deny myself, refuse myself, not give myself permission for. And on the other side, I'm not going to not build the life and work on what I need to work on to make it so that that's a viable, lifestyle.
Yeah.
And to be able to live that, but also to share that with others, because it's a lot about, sharing it with others, not just about my own pleasure. I don't cook just so I can cook for myself, even though I do a lot.
Yeah.
So I just got very interested in like, why has pleasure been given such a bad name of late? And why has it been like put into the corner of very much related to either sex or something overly hedonic or excessive or like overly entertainment or leisure, as if like, you can't have some of that mixed into your life. It's not your whole life though, right?
Right.
And that it actually be healthy. I mean, I believe we are here to live a beautiful life that we love. I believe we're here to share that with other people, to bring people into our circle, into our homes, and sharing the joy. There's a great French word that's called allégresse, which is joy shared with others.
Okay.
And so if I'm generating the joy, if I'm creating the pleasure, and I can share that with other people, I feel like I'm doing something extremely purposeful in life. I'm allowing others to be able to find a way to let go and loosen up and release and actually savor life more than potentially they're allowing themselves. And this is why I always go back to the senses, because it's like a meditation, right? You come back and realize, if we can just come back to the basics, like what does this water feel like on my tongue when I drink it?
So more from like a meditative state where you are just really in the moment and enjoying like the water or the food and not just being so caught up in all the busyness around you.
Yeah, and that's been a challenge for my life a lot. This idea that you get lost in thought, or I'm quite a empathic kind of person, and so I'm a bit sensitive in some ways. So sometimes if have an argument at work or something, maybe in my past days, and that kind of affects you going through your evening.
Yeah.
So I've done everything to try and build a life that allows me to kind of pattern shift out of that.
Yeah.
Right. As well as to create, pleasure and take care of my life. So I don't have a lot of those unpleasant
Sure.
opportunities. But it's, I think you hit it right on the dot, Deanna. It's really like like, where are you putting your awareness?
Right.
And what are you giving value to? And are you able to let go of it so that when you're sitting a romantic dinner, or you're with your kids, or you're doing something that takes some attention, it could be like working on your finances, your home finances, whatever it is, that like you're really there.
Yeah.
And you're present, and you're not being diluted, distracted, pulled away in a way that's not so good. So I don't know, maybe I'm doing my taxes this year, instead of like being in my office space, like I go out and I sit on the grass, or something, like to mix it up. So you actually start to bring in pleasure while you're doing purposeful things. And eating and cooking is a great example of this, right? A lot of people think it's a task, it's boring, it's a waste of time, they don't know how to do it. There's no pleasure, except like in the final eating moment.
Right.
And I think there's a lot more to learn there. That's, like you said, again, it's like a meditation in life. You're having a sensorial check-in constantly throughout life, and you're trying to create these pleasurable moments. And why is it that when people meditate for 20 minutes in the morning, that's like been put on a pedestal, but I ask you to, be in the kitchen with me for 20 minutes to prepare dinner, or 20 minutes to cook, or 20 minutes to clean up, and it's like, the worst thing ever. Like, well, wait a minute. It's like, how can we make this a pleasurable moment?
Right.
How can taking a cold shower be a pleasurable moment?
I hate cold showers. Hey guys, Deanna here with Label Free Podcast. Are you a six-pack kind of guy or a dad bod kind of guy? Either way, our friends at Manscaped have the fellas' hairy bodies covered. They just launched their 4th generation performance package, which includes the Lawnmower 4.0. That's right, you heard that right. 4.0. Trim from the leaders in male grooming, so the man in your life can join the 2 million men worldwide who trust Manscaped by going to manscaped.com for 20% off plus free shipping with the code LABELFREE20. That's right, 20% off with free shipping with the code LABELFREE20. So head on over to their website, manscaped.com, and pick up something for yourself, the man in your life, whomever that might want to benefit from keeping everything nice and tight for the summer. You do like dinners for people, right? And you go through that whole like an experience with them, correct?
I do dinners, and I also do larger events.
Okay, so let's talk about more like the dinners, a little bit more smaller.
Sure.
And how can you walk us through what that looks like when you do that? Is it just for friends, or you do that with your clients to help them go through that whole sensorial experience? What does that look like?
Well, let's keep a little mystery and secret there, but let me give you qualities of what I feel makes for an exquisite sensorial dining experience. Whether, let's say it's at home, because, that's I think a place where we can be the most creative and we're actually engaged. Because what happens when you go out to dinner all the time is you never use your senses, except like for actually the eating part. You're not involved in moving things. And I think, again, you're not giving your head the pattern break you can by using your senses. So anyway, I diverge. So, when you're creating a dining experience or just a dinner, there's really the preparation phase, actually the cooking phase, and then there's eating, and then let's say cleaning up kind of phase, right? So in the preparation phase, the question is, what is the love that you're bringing actually when you're thinking about the menu you want to serve somebody? Maybe you know what somebody loves to eat and you're going to make that dish for them. Maybe someone has a dietary restriction you want to take care of. And you also want to be shopping, at least in my sense, and we're very spoiled like this in France, you want to follow the seasons. So you got to know the seasons.
Right.
for each, like strawberries in winter. I think you need to kind of ask questions about this, right? And I think this is kind of ecological and sending a message to the planet that the planet and trust the planet, that it knows kind of when things should be, grown, and you don't have to buy stuff that comes all the way across the planet. I'm not perfect like that, but I do tend to follow the seasons. And so I get to eat foods that are at the peak of their ripeness during the best period and season of the year. And so already in my preparation, I'm preparing to eat healthily. I'm trying to buy fresh foods. I'm making as much as I can by myself. So things like mayonnaise or salad dressings, or I do my own vinegar. So I have sort of homemade stuff that I integrate there. So when you're shopping, it's already to kind of start like planning out the menu. And I think another game to do there, because people have a lot of challenge, I believe, with
is
portion.
Is this what you teach your clients?
Well, I talk through people about this process a bit.
Okay.
It's just one of the phases of it.
Okay. Gotcha.
And then when we actually sit down there's the whole cooking part that you can actually go through. But again, it's like, how do you bring pleasure into the moments of cooking? And that's by bringing your presence. So you're like, this mindful attention comes to the present moment, and you actually are there. I burned my hand pretty badly 2 months ago.
Oh my goodness. I'm so
and
sorry.
I heated up a pan with some coconut oil, and I went to go write some poetry in another room.
Oh. You were not being very present.
I was not being very present. And so the fire alarm pan is in flames, and I go back and I do the wrong thing, and I splash on my hand and get a 2nd-degree burn, and it was the ultimate reminder, be present.
Yes.
And also when you're present, you don't overcook things or undercook things, and you get better at noticing kind of feels, smells, tastes.
Right.
Like you get better, right? And you get progress, and progress is like a big part of what makes cooking and life a pleasurable moment. So simplify as much as you can. I think is also like lessons in there. Streamline, clean as you go. I like to say, a lot of people don't like to do that, but I'm cleaning my kitchen as I go.
Yeah.
So that at the end of the meal, there's not to clean, right?
Yeah.
And so it's just kind of, I think there's lots of life lessons that you actually, living like finish what you start, and, to use your awareness and try and use all your senses to check in. Like, what am I smelling? What does it look like? And you start to get like a sixth sense of like cooking a steak to know, is this raw, medium, and you start to really sensorially get way more connected to what you're preparing. And I really believe this relates to the way that we relate to life then afterwards, to people, to our connections, to our work. If we can bring this same level of presence and awareness in there, it helps a great deal. And then afterwards, of course, there's sort of cleaning kind of preparation there. But during the meal, I think what's really key to me is, you want to find a way to make surprises at your meals. One way or another, bring in a surprise. It could be a friend that you invited is going to get up and sing at the end of the meal, and nobody knows.
I like that.
Or you're celebrating somebody and they didn't know you're celebrating them. Or you pull out a deck of questions that everyone needs to pick up one question during the evening and answer it. So you want to like create the connection between people and loosen up people and connect people in different ways. So that's not just sort of the same sort of kind of evening necessarily. So to come up with surprises and create a little bit of mystery. People love these kinds of things. And again, artistic expression, I think, is a beautiful thing during dinners. I personally, if I put on music during a dinner, it's going to be without words. I listen to a lot of jazz.
Nice.
Because I think we're already trying to connect and speak and relate. And if you're, clogging with words, it just, for me, it doesn't feel very sensuous or fluid, or basically a very personal kind of preference there. So anyway, it's like you're creating an event and make it special and memorable and meaningful. And maybe you prepared a toast that you're going to give, not just the usual, hey. Yeah. And you're going to talk about the food that you've cooked, maybe in a more elaborate way. And you're going to ask people, what they're enjoying. It's not just, this is really great, but it's so nice when people go a little farther, not like, oh, this is so good. Well,
Right.
give me 3 reasons why that's good. I love the texture of the calamari and the smokiness that is kind of caramelized because it's been a little bit crisp on the sides, right?
Yeah.
And so again, you're like reconnecting and what am I feeling? What am I sensing? And so it's really a way to stay engaged with your body and what your body's receiving. And little by little, this awareness becomes more natural.
Sure.
And you start to raise your standards on what you eat and what you accept eating and what you serve to people and what you choose in restaurants and et cetera, et cetera. And so for me, it's a very sensuous virtual way that's really driven by pleasure.
Yeah.
I want all these moments to be like insanely pleasurable. I mean, why are we so strategic about work life? And then when it comes to personal life, it's sometimes not so strategic. Not saying it needs to be only strategic, but strategic about making your dinners, for example, more pleasurable, more qualitative. That there's a little bit more like this. This is an event.
Right.
This is a special moment.
I live my life like that. So
I love it.
I don't feel like there's anything wrong with experience pleasure in the little things, because when you can experience pleasure in those little things, just chopping your vegetables, preparing the main course, whatever it might be, you've really tapped into a form of happiness for yourself that is so simple and primitive. I feel like, in a way that it really creates a sense of wholeness inside of you, for me personally. So
I love that.
with that being said, we're starting to come to the end here. David, can you please plug all your links where people can find you, reach out to you, connect with you, all those good things?
Sure. You can find me on Facebook and on Instagram. I'm at the Sensorial Guy. You can find my book on Amazon. It's under David Charles Brower, Dance of Love Caterpillars. There's a beautiful audio version with the narration also. And I have a new website also about pleasure coaching, which you can find on my different social media. And yeah, that's pretty much for the moment. Otherwise, I'm in Paris. I move around a lot, but you can find me oftentimes in this city of pleasure.
Awesome. And I'll put all those links in the show notes, you guys. So go take a look, go follow David, reach out to him if you have any questions on what he's talking about. If you're having a hard time finding that pleasure zone in your life, which is so important to have to live a balanced life, and feeling pleasure is part of that. Any last words of wisdom or advice, David, before we say goodbye?
Life is going to serve up what it's going to serve up to each and all of us. And my greatest wish is that we can savor the moments, whatever they are, in our own sort of way. And live a beautiful life, because we're really here to live a beautiful life and share that with others.
Amen to that. Yes, I love it. Well, thank you so much for being a guest today, David. Please let us know what you have going on, any future events or retreats. I see you do retreats as well. Anything you'd like to share with us in the future, just reach out and we'd be happy to have you back as a guest. You guys, this is your host, Deanna Kumpel with Label Free Podcasts. Live your best life. You must live label free. Please don't forget to subscribe, like, comment, share, follow, all those good things. And I'll be back soon with more dynamic guests.